FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
What did you learn that was either negative or helpful, or what did you learn?
That's a good question.
Well, one of the things, I've been going to dermatologists pretty much my whole life, and I've always had kind of these weird rashes that pop up, and sometimes the doctor will say it's eczema, sometimes psoriasis, sometimes you're allergic. There's never been a really clear answer, and for me personally, I did see that one of the reports that we have is on psoriasis, and I am at pretty elevated risk for psoriasis. So I think that helped at least maybe identify why it is that I get these things. And but I didn't have a lot of dramatic learnings and I think I'm very lucky genetically. Maybe I've got both of my grandmothers both lived to 100. My great grandmother lived to 101. So I think I'm just very lucky in that sense. But I've learned my kids, all three of my children were genotyped, and one thing with my fraternal twins is I found out in their HLA region, which is the part of the genome where we inherit our immune systems, they are 100% identical, even though they're not identical twins. That's interesting information if they were in a position where they might need to donate an organ to each other or something along that line. So we're starting to see glimpses of that as we start to peel back more and more of the layers of the genome of how can we use this information going forward. And one of the other areas that we're very interested in is in pharmacogenetics, and I found out that I'm not sensitive to warfarin, which is good information for me to have armed if I ever have a stroke or have a problem where I have to go on basically rat poison to thin my blood out. I can tell my doctor that it doesn't look like I'm at increased risk for sensitivity to that drug, whereas I was on a panel last week with a gentleman, Clayton Christensen, who's a professor at Harvard. He's a big guy, 6'5". He had a stroke caused by a clot, and his doctors kind of gauged his level of warfarin based kind of on his size. They kind of do a little bit of one of these, like, okay, we think we should put you at this dose. Well, he's also a type 1 diabetic, and he was pricking his finger to test his glucose levels, and the blood would just come spouting out of his finger. No. So he had this kind of double thing going on, but we could see that in his genome, and that's information that's very informative when you're encountering these situations.
So are there medical doctors in practice who are knowledgeable in an interpretation, which you obviously are individually, but
we're getting there. There are a lot of organizations that we're talking to, Stanford being one of them, that I think they're very interested in providing programs back to their clinicians in order to get them up to speed on this, because we're not the only company. There are a lot of companies starting to offer these things now.
David?